The main character is abandoned by his wife, having exchanged their friendly family for the wealth of his AP. But like all cheaters, she soon appears on his doorstep with a plea. Greetings, my dear viewer. Let's find out how this story about adultery ended. And while you're watching this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's go. When I stepped through the door, I was greeted by the familiar creak of the hinge and the scent that always meant I was home. At this time, I usually expected to hear the joyful clamor of children, scattered toys, and the quiet hum of Sophia busy in the kitchen. But today the house felt strangely empty. No sound of toys, no muted noise from the TV, just an unsettling silence. Each step felt heavier, as if the silence itself was pulling me down. The absence of laughter, the missing warmth from the stove, all of it filled me with growing unease. My heart began to race as I made my way toward our bedroom. When I reached the door, I froze. There, in front of me, stood Sophia, furiously packing things into a suitcase. Her face was like a frozen mask, her movements sharp and purposeful. She didn't even glance in my direction as I stood there, rooted to the spot in shock. Her expression, it wasn't just anger. It was something colder, more resolute. "Sophia, what's going on?" My voice trembled, a mix of confusion and the dread I was beginning to realize. She didn't stop, continuing to pack with mechanical precision. "I'm leaving, William," she said, her voice brittle and sharp, like the edge of a knife. I blinked, trying to process her words. "Leaving? What are you talking about?" I asked, feeling my throat tighten. "Why now?" Without meeting my eyes, she zipped up one suitcase and dragged another onto the bed. "You really don't get it, do you?" she said with a bitter laugh. "I'm tired, William. Tired of fighting, tired of waiting for you to fix everything. I can't do this anymore." I just stood there, stunned. "Sophia, we've been through hard times before. This isn't new, but we always made it through, didn't we? We have kids, a home, a life." She spun around to face me, her voice full of unrestrained frustration. "I don't want to hear any more of your promises. It's always the same. Someday things will get better. I'm tired of waiting for someday." My heart pounded, struggling to make sense of what was happening. "Sophia, we're partners. We can get through this together." Her shout sliced through the air like a knife. "I've waited too long!" Her eyes blazed with anger, but behind it, I saw something worse. Contempt. "Do you really think I want to stay in this miserable situation? Do you think I want to keep living with someone who can't give me what I need?" Her words hit me like a punch, igniting my own irritation. "What are you trying to say? We're married. We're supposed to work through this together." Finally, she stopped and looked directly at me. The warmth that had once shone in her eyes was gone, replaced by an icy detachment. "I've found someone else," she said. A suffocating silence followed. Her confession crashed over me like a blow to the gut, knocking the wind out of me. My hands shook as I managed to ask, with difficulty, "What do you mean? Someone else?" Her face didn't flinch. "Someone younger, someone successful, someone who can give me what I need, not like you." I took a step toward her, desperation burning inside me. "Sophia, we have a family. What about the kids? What about everything we've built?" She smirked, her face twisted with disdain. "What have we built, William? William, stop lying to yourself. Do you really think I still care about this crumbling house or our children? I've been suffocating in this empty life for far too long." There's a knot in my stomach. "Our children? You don't care about them?" I asked, barely believing what I was hearing. Her voice was sharp, cold as ice. "I'm tired of this game. He offers so much more than you ever could. Money, influence, and let's be honest, he's far better in bed." I felt the blood drain from my face as her words hit me. "What are you even talking about?" I muttered, struggling to keep control long enough to ask the question. She sneered, her expression turning mocking and cruel. "Oh, come on, William, he's very well endowed. 12 inches to be precise." "You're joking, right?" I muttered, unable to comprehend what was happening. My fists clenched involuntarily, my fingers turning white from the tension. "You're really going to throw it all away for some rich guy?" My voice trembled, barely concealing my rising anger. "What's happened to you?" Before she could answer, I heard the familiar sound of an engine outside. It was the hum of a car far too luxurious for me ever to afford. I turned to the window and my heart sank. A sleek, expensive car was idling at the curb. The door opened and out stepped a tall man in a perfectly tailored suit. His face radiated arrogance, making my blood boil. He walked toward the house as if he already owned it, his movements exuding the kind of confidence that only immense wealth brings. "Hey, loser," he called out to me, his voice dripping with contempt. "She's with me now." I couldn't move, caught in a whirlwind of rage and disbelief. This wasn't just any man. This was the person tearing my family apart, the reason my wife was leaving. He smirked, as if all of this was just a game to him. She deserves someone who can give her what she really wants, not some poor guy barely scraping by. Those words pierced me, and I clenched my fists even harder, a red haze clouding my vision, my heart pounding wildly in my chest. "Get out of my house!" I growled through clenched teeth, fighting with everything I had to contain the storm brewing inside me. Meanwhile, Sophia fastened her suitcase and slung it over her shoulder without even glancing at me. She looked at him, beaming, as if all of this was perfectly normal. "Ready, darling?" she asked, her voice filled with joy. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and I stood there, frozen, helplessly watching the woman I had spent 13 years with walk out of my life without a second thought, leaving me shattered. "You can keep the kids," he said indifferently. "They'd just slow us down." I turned to Sophia, hoping, praying she would object, that she would say something, anything about our children. But she said nothing. She just smiled, ready to leave everything behind. My heart sank into a darkness I never knew existed. This was the woman I had built a life with, the mother of my children, and she was willing to abandon it all for some empty dream with this stranger. I took a step forward, my voice quiet and cold. "If you walk out that door with him, don't even think you can come back when it all falls apart." She paused for a moment, then looked at me with contempt in her eyes. "Oh, shut up. I won't need to." And with that, she turned, walked away with him arm in arm, and the door slammed shut behind them. In that moment, my world collapsed. Everything I had known was gone. The noise echoed through the house, marking the end of the life we once shared. I stood motionless, watching as the expensive car disappeared into the distance, the hum of its engine growing fainter. My chest tightened, as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. I wanted to scream, to unleash the storm raging inside, but I held back. I had to. The kids were upstairs, unaware of the hurricane that had just shattered their world. They needed me to stay strong. So I stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of what had happened. It felt like my marriage had crumbled right before my eyes, like a sad scene I was powerless to stop. The worst part was that I hadn't even tried to stop her. I just stood there, watching her leave. But what could I have done? She made her choice. The days after that blurred into one long, numbing existence. Sleep became a stranger. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, leaving, hand in hand with him. That image, like a burn, tormented me. And every morning I woke up to the cold reality. It wasn't a nightmare. She really was gone. The house, once filled with laughter and the warmth of family, now felt cold and lifeless. The kids were lost, confused. They didn't understand why their mother hadn't returned, why she wasn't there to say goodnight. I had no answers for them, and barely any for myself. One morning, while I was pouring cereal for breakfast, my son Damien broke the heavy silence. "When is Mommy coming back?" he asked, his voice innocent but insistent. I froze, gripping the cereal box so tightly my knuckles turned white. "She's on a trip, buddy," I managed to say, forcing a smile. "On a trip?" he repeated, his wide eyes searching for the truth in mine. "Why didn't she say goodbye?" That question cut through me like a knife. She had to leave in a hurry," I muttered, unable to meet his gaze. "But she'll be back." The lie weighed heavily on my tongue. What else could I say? How could I explain that their mother had left for another man? That the person she chose didn't want them? I couldn't break their hearts. Not yet. Days turned into weeks. Every morning I went through the motions, getting the kids ready for school, packing their lunches, dropping them off. I threw myself into work, hoping it would distract me from thoughts of her. Evenings were spent with the kids, helping with homework, making dinner, putting them to bed. It was exhausting, but it kept me from falling apart. One night, after putting Damien to bed, I went to check on Ava, my eldest daughter. She lay on her bed, staring up at the ceiling. Ever since Sophia left, she had withdrawn into herself, growing quieter with each passing day. I sat on the edge of her bed, gently brushing her hair from her face. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly. "Are you okay?" She was silent for a long time, her eyes fixed on the ceiling as if she were far away. Finally, she turned her head towards me, her voice barely audible. "Dad, doesn't Mom love us anymore?" That question hit me like a punch to the gut. The air seemed to thicken around me, and my chest tightened with pain. How was I supposed to answer that? How do you tell a 10-year-old girl that her mother chose someone else over her? "No, sweetheart," I quickly replied, feeling my throat tighten. "Mom loves you very much. She's just going through a tough time right now." Ava looked at me with her big brown eyes full of doubt. "Then why isn't she coming back?" she whispered. I searched for the right words, but none of them felt right. "Sometimes adults have problems," I said quietly, trying to keep the tremble out of my voice. "And sometimes they need time to figure things out." She sat in silence, her fingers barely touching the fabric of the blanket draped over her knees. "Did I make a mistake?" she asked in a barely audible voice. I shook my head, feeling the pain in my chest intensify with every word she spoke. "No, sweetheart, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong." For a moment, the air between us seemed to freeze, as if the conversation had ended. But then she lifted her gaze to me again, her voice trembling as she asked, "Will she come back?" I hesitated, feeling the painful truth tearing me apart inside, desperate to be let out. I longed to tell her yes, that everything would go back to the way it was, that her mother would walk through the door, and we would all be together again. But I couldn't keep feeding her false hope. I couldn't keep pretending. "I don't know, Ava," I answered softly, my voice barely a whisper. "I really don't know." She didn't cry. Instead, she just gave a slight nod, then turned away, clutching the blanket tighter around herself. I sat beside her, helpless, feeling the weight of my own failure pressing down on me. What kind of father was I if I couldn't protect my daughter from this kind of pain? That night, as the house fell into its usual silence, I sat alone in the living room, and that silence suffocated me. The emptiness of the house felt unbearable. Every creak of the floor, every tick of the clock echoed in the space, amplifying the loneliness. My eyes lingered on the couch where Sophia used to sit, and now the void she left behind was painfully obvious. This couldn't go on any longer. I couldn't keep living in this state of waiting, hoping she'd come back or that her dream would crumble. I needed to move on, for the sake of the kids, for my own sanity. They needed me, and I had to be their support. The next day, I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer. As we discussed the divorce, custody issues, and division of assets, I felt the full weight of it all hit me like a blow. Ending it, officially severing ties with Sophia, was terrifying. But it was the only way forward. There was no turning back. She had made her choice, and now it was time for me to make mine. Late that evening, when I got home, I found a letter in the mailbox. My pulse quickened as soon as I recognized the familiar handwriting. It was from Sophia. My hands trembled as I opened the letter, reading her words with growing disbelief. "William, I know this is hard, but it's for the best. I found someone who can give me the life I deserve, and you need to let me go. Please, don't make this harder. I don't want to fight for the kids. I know they'll be better off with you. Let's settle this peacefully and move on." Sophia. I clenched the letter in my fist, feeling my jaw tighten. The life she deserved? What about the life we had? What about our kids? She didn't even care that she was leaving them. She was ready to walk away as if we meant nothing. I crumpled the letter and threw it into the trash, standing there for a few moments, staring at that discarded scrap of paper. She was truly gone, but in that moment, I realized something important. We would be fine. I would be fine. And my kids, they would be fine too. We didn't need her to survive. The period of destruction had begun, but from this point on, I was sure of one thing. We would be fine. No matter what happened, we would be okay. Over the next 2 months, life found a new rhythm. It wasn't easy. Mornings became a rush of preparing breakfasts, packing lunches, and sending the kids off to school. Evenings blurred together, homework, dinner, and trying to keep the house from falling apart. But amidst all the chaos, we found our routine, our new normal. It was hard at first, especially for the kids. They missed their mother and often asked about her. But over time, their questions became less frequent, and the pain gradually faded. I buried myself in work, channeling my anger and sadness into something productive. Sophia had left me broken, but I refused to stay that way. I made a decision, not just to prove something to her, but to show myself that I could build something greater, something better. I was no longer going to sit and wait for opportunities to come to me. I was creating them myself. Every morning, long before dawn, I was already up and working tirelessly. I expanded my client base, honed my skills, and gradually developed the business. My office became a sanctuary, and soon the relentless effort began to pay off. The business thrived, and along with it, my financial situation improved. The days of scraping by were slowly fading into the past. Even the kids noticed the changes. We started buying better clothes, eating better food, and driving a new car. The constant struggle for survival was behind us. Life was finally coming together, but despite my success, I couldn't stop thinking about Sophia. It wasn't that I missed her. It was the feeling of humiliation she had left behind. The image of her leaving with that smug, unbearable Oscar replayed in my mind over and over. It kept me up at night and pushed me to work even harder during the day. Meanwhile, Sophia and Oscar flaunted their luxurious life on every platform imaginable. Photos of extravagant dinners, exotic vacations, and expensive cars flooded the internet, as if they wanted to rub it in my face. But people like Oscar are never satisfied. His world revolved around arrogance, excess, and a thirst for attention. Soon, rumors started to circulate through mutual acquaintances. It turned out Oscar quickly grew bored and moved on to someone else, someone younger and more glamorous. Sophia became just another discarded page in his life, a relic of the past. When I found out he was dating a 25-year-old model, I felt a fleeting sense of pity for her. But it quickly passed. I remembered her smug smile when she walked out of my life. She had made her choice. Then came the moment I had unknowingly been waiting for. It was a Saturday. I was home with the kids, folding laundry while Ava and Damien played in the other room. There was a knock at the door. I glanced out the window, and my heart stopped for a moment. There she stood, Sophia, on my porch. But this wasn't the confident, polished woman who had left me months ago. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, her eyes swollen and red from crying. I walked to the door, already knowing what was about to happen. When I opened it, silence hung between us. She stood there looking at me, tears brimming in her eyes. "William," she began, her voice trembling and fragile. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "What do you want, Sophia?" I asked evenly. She swallowed, trying to compose herself. I made a mistake," she said, her voice breaking. "Oscar, he's gone. He left me for someone younger, and he lost everything. The businesses, the cars, the money. It's all gone." I looked at her without emotion. Inside, I felt a cold, grim satisfaction, but I didn't show it. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice calm and detached. Desperation flickered in her eyes. "Because I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you. I see that now. I was foolish, William. I thought I could find something better, but it doesn't exist. I want to come back. To you. To the kids. Please, let me fix this. I'll do anything." A bitter laugh escaped my lips, and I shook my head. "You want to come back? After everything you've done? After you threw our life away for some fantasy? And now you think I should just forget about it?" Tears streamed down her face, and she took a step toward me. "I know I don't deserve it," she whispered, "but I still love you, William." I always knew. Deep inside, the truth was hidden, but somewhere along the way, I lost sight of it. Lost. The word echoed sharply as I spoke it aloud, more biting than I had intended. "Lost? Is that what you call it, Sophia?" Her gaze met mine, but I didn't flinch. "It wasn't about you losing your way. You made a conscious choice. You chose him. You left me, left our children, because you thought you'd find something better. Now that your illusion has crumbled, you think you can just walk back into our lives." Her hands trembled as she reached for me, desperation written all over her face. "Please, William," she pleaded, her voice cracking, full of emotion. "Think about the children." I cut her off, my voice as sharp as steel. "No, you don't get to use them now. You abandoned them, Sophia. You left without a second thought. Do you even know why they don't ask about you anymore? Because they're hurt. They remember how you left them for a man who didn't care about them." Her face contorted with grief, her body shaking with sobs. "I know I hurt them. I know I failed them. And you. But I can fix this. I promise." I didn't let her finish. "No," I said firmly. "You made your choice. Now you have to live with it." Her sobs grew louder, but I remained unmoved. The woman standing before me was no longer the Sophia I once loved. She was a shadow of the person I used to know, a figure from a past that no longer held any power over me. "I'm happy now," I said, stepping back toward the house where my new wife awaited me. Her eyes widened in shock. "A new wife?" she whispered. "Yes, Sophia," I replied, giving her no time to process it. "I've moved on. I found someone who loves me and the children, someone who embodies everything you never had, loyalty, kindness, and sincerity, and she doesn't care about money or status, unlike you." Sophia's face twisted in pain as she took a step back, wiping away her tears. She looked utterly broken. I didn't realize." "Of course not," I said, my words cutting through the air. "You were too caught up in your fantasy. But now that fantasy is over, just like this conversation." She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. "William, please." But I said nothing more. I simply turned away and closed the door, shutting her out of my life for good. For a moment I stood still, listening as her sobs gradually faded, her footsteps slowly retreating down the stairs. Then I returned to the living room. Ava and Damien were playing with their toys, blissfully unaware of the emotional storm that had just passed. I knelt beside them, pulling them close. Their warmth enveloped me, and in that moment, I knew that we were better off without her. For the first time in a long while, a sense of peace washed over me. Life has a remarkable way of surprising you when you least expect it. Sophia's betrayal once seemed like the end of everything. But over time, I came to see it as the beginning of something far greater than I could have ever imagined. My business was thriving. After Sophia left, I threw myself into work, rebuilding everything that had fallen apart. With each new success, the pain receded further, and I inched closer to freedom and happiness. I expanded my client base, made smart investments, and now found myself in a position I couldn't have imagined just a year ago, financially secure and living life entirely on my terms. One afternoon, sitting in my office reviewing numbers, I heard laughter from the living room. It was a sound that had become more common in our home lately, the joyful melody that had been missing in the final years of my marriage to Sophia. I set aside the papers, feeling the familiar warmth of something beautiful waiting just ahead. Through the window, I saw my children, Ava and Damien, playing in the garden. Their laughter floated through the air like a sweet melody. My wife, Victoria, stood nearby, her face glowing with serene happiness as she watched them. Our eyes met, and the warmth in hers gave me a sense of contentment I hadn't thought possible to feel again. As I approached, she extended her hand, pulling me into the harmony that now surrounded our family. "Look at them," she whispered, gazing at the children with admiration. "They're so full of joy." "Yes, they are," I agreed softly, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "And so are we." Victoria came into my life at a time when I wasn't sure I had room left for love. We met at an event, a few months after Sophia had left me. At first, I wasn't sure if I could open myself up again. But there was something special about Victoria, her calm, gentle nature, her sincerity, that slowly broke down my walls. She didn't care about appearances or trying to impress anyone. She just loved, especially when it came to my children. And that was the most important thing to me. "Dad, come play with us!" Damien's voice broke through my thoughts as he held up a toy ball, his eyes alight with excitement. I glanced at Victoria, who gave me a knowing smile. I took off my shoes and ran toward my son, catching the ball he threw. Ava giggled, rushing toward me, trying to knock me over, even though she barely reached my knees. These simple moments, full of life and laughter, reminded me of how far I'd come. The house, once filled with tension and unspoken pain, was now light and peaceful. Victoria had brought calm into my life, making everything feel so simple and natural. She wasn't interested in status or material things that once weighed me down. She valued the little moments, late-night talks, family dinners, slow Sundays spent together. It was a life I didn't know I had dreamed of until I started living it. Sophia, on the other hand, had gradually faded from my life. The last time I saw her, she had shown up at my door, a shadow of the woman I once knew, asking for a second chance. Now, I rarely thought of her, though bits of her life still reached me. Oscar, the man she left me for, had abandoned her. He found someone younger and more attractive, and his once glamorous life had crumbled under the weight of failed investments and legal troubles. Sophia tried to cling to him, but like me, he discarded her as soon as she became a burden. It was a sort of ironic justice, I suppose. But knowing that Sophia's life had fallen apart didn't bring me any joy or satisfaction. I didn't need her downfall to feel whole. My real victory was in the life I had now, with Victoria and the children, full of love and laughter. The chapter with Sophia was closed, a distant memory that no longer defined who I was. "Is everything okay?" Victoria's voice gently pulled me out of my thoughts. She stood beside me, smiling softly as I still held the ball. "Better than okay," I replied, smiling back at her and then at the kids. "I'm perfect, right here, with all of you." We spent the rest of the day playing in the garden, laughing until we were out of breath. That evening, we sat down for dinner, enjoying the meal Victoria had prepared. Ava and Damien chatted endlessly about their day, their voices filling the house with a cozy, vibrant energy. When the children were asleep, Victoria and I settled on the couch with glasses of champagne. The house had fallen into the quiet calm that follows a day filled with joy. She rested her head on my shoulder, her voice soft as she spoke. I used to wonder if you'd ever truly let go of Sophia, but now I see it. You've let go, haven't you? I took a deep breath, her words sinking in deeply. Yes, I answered quietly, feeling the truth in them. I really have let go. Victoria's smile lit up her face as she gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You deserved this, William. We all did. I mirrored her smile, leaning in to softly kiss her on the forehead. Yes, we deserved this. Everything happening felt almost unreal, standing on the threshold of a new chapter, surrounded by happiness and warmth. Not long ago, my entire world had collapsed. Betrayed and humiliated, I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. But here, at the heart of this new beginning, I realized something important. Sophia's betrayal had been the catalyst for all the changes in my life. Had she not left, I would never have met Victoria. I wouldn't have built the business that now stands as a testament to my resilience and strength. More than that, I would never have become the father I am today, deeply connected to my children in ways I couldn't have imagined before. The bitterness I once felt has long faded. There's no trace of anger left, nor any desire for revenge. Sophia and Oscar are now nothing more than echoes of the past, holding no power over me. Somewhere they are living their lives, perhaps facing the consequences of their decisions. But their fate no longer concerns me. My choices have brought me here, to a life filled with love, peace, and contentment. When Victoria nestled close to me, her hand resting lightly on my chest, I couldn't help but smile. Life is unpredictable, full of twists and surprises. But sometimes, if luck is on your side, those twists lead you exactly where you need to be. And for me, that place is here, beside Victoria, with my children, living the life we've built with love and care. My friend, and this is the end of the story. If you liked this story, then put your royal like and subscribe to the channel. May the force be with you.